up. I know you're here.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Hello, beautiful Jess. I am wonderful. How are you today? And tell us all about this. Tell us all about Money Awakening.
Oh my gosh. So Money Awakening is the program that I'm creating right now, which is pretty much, I know people always say this, and maybe I'm just one of those people, but like it is integrating everything, every single year of my life, every single year as a creative entrepreneur, as a scientist, as a shamanic guide, as a soul mentor. It's putting all of that stuff together. And I have people asking me pretty much every day, like, can I sign up? Can I sign up? The answer is no. Like, I'm not here to pitch you anything. I'm just here to talk because I love this, what we're talking about so much. It will be available in the summer. You could do a little Google around, find me, of course, and you can hop on like my Epic email if you want more information. But Money Awakening is, I'm going to be walking people through the soul and scientific bodily process that I went through to create basically what I feel is my life's calling, my soul's calling, but also do it in a way that is reflected financially. Because one of the questions that I always ask people is, and I mean, we're all in this kind of field together, right? No matter what we're doing, even if we might not have spiritual businesses, we're still quite spiritual. Like, you don't need to have a spiritual business to have a spiritual business. Right. One of the things I always ask people is, does the actual money in your life reflect the fullness that you feel in your soul and the richness that you feel in your soul? And then I normally have like one of two responses. People are like, oh, how rude. Like, what a question, right? It's kind of a jerky question because we're sort of trained to believe that our souls have all of this richness and this vitality and this diversity and variety and incredible kind of, almost like tangible nature to them. And to even assume that we could approach something financially in the material world would almost be asking too much. Do you know what I mean? So using a lot of the exercises and the techniques and the inner work that I came up with for Money Awakening, I was actually able to earn like close to $500,000 in half a year in a brand new business, working with fellow creative entrepreneurs and other visionary sort of women like you and all the other lovely people here. So yeah, that is Money Awakening, but it is still very much being cooked right now. And even the process of making it, I was just chatting with somebody about this on my Facebook page. They were saying like, oh, is there a link up yet? And I was like, no, like we have to hold off. And one of the reasons is I've actually been going against, I love what Gabby was talking about, like self-worth and like the ego in her last session. So I think in this industry, and this is a big tangent, but just this is what we're here to do, right? In this industry, we kind of emphasize the importance of like fast action. Right? Like, I'm sure everybody here has mentioned fast action being, the thing that we're always told we need to do. We need to make sure we don't self-sabotage. We need to make sure that we don't, create barriers where there are none. But there's also a time where, and this is one of the things I teach, when we connect with the spirit of our business or our offer or a program, that will inform us perhaps to do something different. So I've been having actually a lot of, buddies that are coaches saying like, well, maybe you should create something like smaller, just to get people in your work, like, get them used to paying you or whatever. And I would literally ask Money Awakening, the spirit of Money Awakening, be like, is that the move? And every single time it's been no. You're going to have to put your ego aside, Jess. You're going to have to just put your ego aside and accept that it's going to take human steps to do this thing. And that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like that difference there.
Yeah. I know this is going to be a big theme for the rest of the day, actually. So I love that you brought this up, is the importance of the pause. It's important that we take inspired action, but just being really reconnect. I think we're all restructuring in 2022. I mean, I'm not talking about everyone, but it seems like a big theme is just getting aligned and quiet with what is truly at our soul's heart. So
I think, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I want to hear more about that, but also how creativity is this driver. So
I think it's really important. And again, I understand why so many coaches emphasize fast action, Because when you're at the beginning of stages of deciphering the difference between your anxiety and your intuition and your impulses and your instincts, all of those are different. Like all those are 4 different things. When you're at the beginning stages, our normal response typically is a bit of a freeze response. Like we will do freeze or we will run away. It is very rare that we jump into over delivery, which is just a fawn response, right? It's very rare that we do that. So I get that coaches of people who are kind of navigating that part of their journey, you do need to emphasize like enough thinking, do something, like just get on it, fast action. But I also think my role in this as a shamanic guide and a scientist is to help emphasize not all action needs to be fast to be effective, and I would never go up to a tree and be like, bloom faster, give me the apple now. And I think we kind of bypass that a bit. And, as a shaman, everything from my perspective is nature-based, and I think people have this view of like shamanism being this very woo thing. It is the most grounded thing. There's nothing more natural, more grounded than shamanism, because it is just who we are on a biological level. So if you're feeling like, oh, I'm not moving fast enough on this offer, or I'm not moving fast enough on the thing that I know is going to be my next soul's calling, it's okay if it takes 6 months. It's okay if it takes 3 months or, 5 days longer than you think it will. And it's getting past that. It's all ego. Because if I was just to put this thing out and do like really quick haphazard videos, and not to, say that's not the right move for some people. Many people are meant to put out a program that is like, I'm just doing this on the fly, right? I'm going to bring people in as I go and sell it as I make it. That is a move that is perfectly valid. But literally every time I've checked in with myself and this program, I was getting like no, this is not that place. I'm in a position where I know now, for me, my goal with creativity and this project is more base, more balance. And that is something that I say over and over again to my own clients. Like it's actually I don't know, planking, when you plank for like fitness, you have to hold a plank. One of my trainers, that was a line that he always used. He said, more base, more balance. If you're unsteady, you widen your legs, you get a wider base. That is what I'm about. That is what nature is. We do not have to rush anything. We do not have to be invoking a fast action energy if it doesn't feel right. And I think that's something where, as we're in this sphere with so many amazing coaches doing what works for them, which is fantastic, we always have to check back in with ourselves and be like, okay, I got this information. They're telling me to move quickly or to, do X, Y, Z or try this strategy. We always, always, always have to reflect back to our own soul and ask ourselves, does that really resonate? Or am I feeling like I need to do it to gain, as Gabby was saying in her chat, the self-worth and the validation that I'm looking for? And really, like, that is the work. And that is why I love what I do at this base level, because I don't teach a lot of strategy. I teach exercises to help you find yourself, because I know that people always say like, I want to make more money. I want to make more money. I want to make more impact. But I know from a shamanic perspective, you need all of your soul to be within you in order to be home to receive wealth. That's where I come in. Like, that is my lane. Everybody has their kind of version of what they're doing here. My lane is to help you amass your spiritual self and your physical body and bring it all together in integrity, so that you could say to this amazing coach, I hear what you're saying. I know this strategy works for you, but it feels like shit for me. Right. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. It doesn't reflect badly on them or on you. This is the soul integrity that I think is going to be the base that will allow for balance long term. So somebody like me, I'm living this work too. I don't want to make it sound like there's no hierarchy here. Like, there's no hierarchy in nature. When we get to those places of every day trying to do this thing that you're creating with creativity, working with creativity, you don't psych yourself out or freak yourself out and get into a panic mode thinking, oh my God, people are asking and I have nothing to give them yet, because how dare this amazing revolutionary program I'm building, how dare it take me longer than a month to put together, right? Like, you can hear how ridiculous that sounds, right? But we do that to ourselves all the time, don't we? We demand these,
Realistic.
Yeah, like it, and I hate that. Like, that word, I am somebody who was very much for achieving unrealistic goals.
Mhm.
But I'm also understanding, like, as a scientist, I know that the human body has physical constraints. If you don't go without sleep, you will get sick or die or be malnourished, or like something will go wrong in your body. And that is a physical constraint, but it's not a limit. You're meant to use that information, right? So when I hear people like, oh, well, I just want to burn through this and put it out in the world, that's when I know, and I'm sure this has been talked about already today, when you are trying to quantum leap, so to speak, ask yourself, am I trying to do this really quickly from a place of time scarcity? And 99% of the time, you are. So if that's the energy you're building on this foundation, what do we think we're going to get from it? Right. So yeah, I'm going to take a quick look at some of these comments here. I'm really happy that people are dropping some notes here.
Yeah, I love the term soul integrity. So powerful. About the external pressures. So my question for you is about shamanism and how that can help our prosperity journey. I just want to know more. I want to know all about shamanism.
So how long do we have? I know I can't take over everybody's time, so I will go quick here.
Because something that is came to me this morning within the past 24 hours is that my next show, I think the theme is going to be shamanism.
Yes.
How does
I will
that
be there.
sound?
Of course, I will be there with bells on. So here's the thing, the Coles Notes version of shamanism. And this is actually, like, full disclosure, something I struggled with, in fact, with some of my own coaches, because I've always been of this like spirituality type. Shamanism is the earliest form of spiritual practice. And it is not a religion, so one does not need to buy. Yeah, it's nothing like that. Hang on here. Let's mute people who are here. There we go. It is the oldest spiritual practice. And I know people can tend to think of it like, oh, I have to have like a drum and a deer skin and, like, you know, visions or whatever. That is totally possible. But here I am, me, human chick, just living my life, imbuing it with shamanism. And if you are anybody who has any sort of spiritual inclination, if you love astrology, if you love human design, if you light a candle and make a wish, those, like, the blood beneath all of that, the beating heart beneath everything that we do that's like woo, is shamanism. It is the most universal. It is literally something that every culture on the planet has. And the really neat thing is, when you dig into the archetypes, when you dig into the medicine and the magic, for lack of a better word, because it's not magic, it's so freaking grounded. When you do that, it is all the same. That is why somebody like me, who has my own history, like, I'm Indigenous and I teach what I know, it will connect with you no matter who you are on the planet, no matter where you're from or what you believe. And the second part that I want people to know about shamanism in particular is, so you already know, if you're listening to me for the past few minutes, I'm also a scientist. And, like, I'm a biologist specifically with, like, heavy neuroscience background and stuff. And people always say to me, like, well, how do you justify, like, you've got pretty woo out here with shamanism and then, like, data-driven, evidence-based stuff. The beauty is with shamanism is we have what is known as direct revelation, which means I will not, as a shaman, ask you to believe anything that you don't experience yourself, ever. And the neat thing is, as people partake in exercises or do some of this journey work, these soul journey work that I do, they develop their own kind of version of how it works for them. And they have literal direct experience that they can lean on. And that helps their brain kind of reaffirm and rebuild these sort of neural networks to understanding how your life can go. So it's the opposite of, like, oh, just believe the thing and you'll see it, or, you know, like, imagine this and it'll appear in front of you. It is not that. It is every day, what am I seeing right now and how can I interact with that? There is literally no fight. As a highly trained scientist right now here in front of you, there's no fight between shamanism and science. None. In fact, many things that I couldn't understand via the scientific side of the world, I could understand with shamanism. And the funny thing is, as I was getting into this more, like, publicly, stepping out of that sort of spiritual closet, the thing that I bumped up against was like, oh, well, I think people have this idea of, the more spiritual stuff is like very up here. And you and I have talked about this before, Carrie, right? Like the angels, the ascended masters, the intuition, it's all up here in the ether. And that's great. But I also know that part of being human is to bring it down. And it's funny, like that, I was looking into human design earlier, and that is my like conscious sun sign. My conscious sun, my role in life is to help people pull down the mystical and the spiritual and bring it back to earth and bring it into humanity. So when I think of that, it's like, again, one of those things you cannot explain, but there it is. And we need to stop thinking of spiritual as up here in the clouds and the worlds, in your subconscious mind, in the mystical stuff. We need to remember that spirituality is here. It's in your human body. There is an electrical current powering your heart right now. Trees are giving us oxygen to breathe. That is the most remarkable, amazing miracle ever. All of these things happen on Earth in 3D space. So that's why I get kind of twitchy when I hear people that are like, oh, 5D, wonderful, unless they bring it down. And thankfully, the amazing people here I know do that work of bringing it down into reality, because it is so easy to get lost in these other realms. And I mean, the definition of a shaman is somebody who can walk in all of these realms. But we know it is very easy to like disappear into one of them. You're not meant to spend your whole time up in meditation land or in the conscious space of the spiritual realm. I go there and I get information, and then I come back here and I work with people in this kind of tangible reality. So hopefully that makes sense.
Absolutely. I want more people to ask questions, but it makes so much sense. Shamanism basically is taking consciousness and drawing it back into how we can create tangibility and create what we're really truly here to do. I feel like,
because what's the point, right? Like we are not meant to be, if we were meant to be just consciousness up in the ether with stars or whatever, we wouldn't be here with beating hearts and blood and hair and dreams and wishes and all of these things. And what I love so much about shamanism is it is literally the perfect blend of everything, but it doesn't demand that you take anything on faith. And there's nothing wrong with faith. Absolutely not. But I've found in my experience, as somebody who like is highly trained in kind of understanding the scientific mechanics of the world, I needed that to help me build in my own version of like self-confidence with what I'm doing. And I'm not saying that we need to explain everything. There are many things that science can't explain. But the cool thing with this is it doesn't matter. Like when I take you on a soul journey and you see the same thing as another person in that class, and I have not told you what to see, that is where you're just like, and when you open up to that reality, I find the thing that's most surprising, and it was for me too, I thought that being sort of living this life spiritually with my business, for example, like we talked about the spirit of money awakening, I thought it would be very like woo, very ethereal, very vague and unknowable, but it's the exact opposite. For me, it is the most grounded, normal, like it'll ease your anxiety, for example, because every time you do a shamanic soul journey, it is by necessity a healing as well. Like that's the incredible thing, because when we mentioned soul integration, that is what shamans do. Shamans travel all of these different realms, and they literally pull in fragments of soul, of parts of you that you've left behind from other experiences. And when I view how do we build wealth, that question that comes up, that is the answer. If you continue to pull those parts of yourself back, the little girl in 4th grade who got laughed at because she sang in front of an audience, and people couldn't handle her at that point, so she got laughed at, and she, in a shaman's perspective, part of your soul fragments then, and is actually left there, or in some cases it'll just kind of go off. And what a shaman does is go and they find that and they help you bring that back. That's where your wealth is. That's where your creativity is. That's where your power is. And it's literally just a process of bringing all of you back into integrity. And from there, you have like the business and the strategy and everything like that. It becomes easy to recognize. I'm not saying you don't need other help. Of course you do. You might need a business strategist. You might need a messaging coach. Like you might need these people. But when you are more within yourself, it is easy for you to recognize this is what I need next. You just won't question it. You'll be like, oh, I need to drop $5,000 on this. And I know that this will work out, and you don't need to have those answers because you were enough within yourself. You're integrated. And I hope people understand, like when I say like integrity, I don't mean like ethics. I mean like integral, like the full integration of who you are. So that is, again, we could talk about this forever.
That's why I think I'm going to do a whole one day on this. You're having like people move to tears and just.
Oh, good. I mean, hopefully they're good tears.
People needed to hear this so much. Good. This is speaking so much to me. It makes perfect sense. And that's exactly why I call myself a soul wealth coach, is because it's bringing yourself back to being whole. It's integrating the fragmented pieces. And this is what I've seen through my own journey in my youth of having depression and anxiety. It was my soul being fragmented.
Yeah. And I mean, and I want to reiterate here, like the shamanic term for that is soul loss, right? And it's loss of a part of soul, but it sounds really sounds pretty awful. It is totally normal. And I'll give you a really quick example. When I actually came up with the idea, or when it was kind of gifted to me for Money Awakening, the name itself, Money Awakening, came to me, I experienced a little piece of soul loss because it was actually triggering, because every part of me knew this is huge. I knew that I'm meant to be working and building and leading this revolution of visionary women in this particular way. I knew that was what I was meant to be called to do next. But that energy behind that was almost so much that part of me got freaked out. I literally had to see a shaman and was like, something, like I could just tell something's wrong. And they were like, oh, here's what happened. It was literally because part of your egoic version of you got freaked out at the bigness of what, like, it feels like you're trying to swallow the sun with this work right now that we're doing together. And part of me experienced a little bit of fragmentation there. And again, I think if you're feeling like, oh my God, I have soul loss, we all do. Like, this is why shamans exist. We can all, it's all fixable, but don't feel like you're not whole. And this is a really, really important distinction that I want to talk about here. Yeah, we have time, briefly, if we can, because when I talk about integration, it can make it sound like if you picture a puzzle, like we're all big puzzles. And if I experienced a piece of soul loss or a fragmentation that happened when I was 15, had an awful experience, whatever, and that part of me exits, like that is literally what a shaman will do. They will go and retrieve that for you in what is called a soul retrieval. But I don't want you to think that doesn't mean you're whole, because you have to remember the reason you can sense that something is off in you, like that feeling you had when you were depressed or anxious, or even me, like freaking out about a program or whatever. You get that feeling because you are still connected to the resonance of those parts of you. And here was the mind-blowing moment for me. I work with women who come to me and they're like, something more is calling me. And I know in their mind, they're interpreting that as more money, more impact, more, business, like amazing stuff, which is true. But I know the minute I hear that something more is calling me, the more that is calling them is the part of their soul that they have left behind that is now literally pinging them saying, listen, dude, if you want to move forward on this thing, this creative project, you need me over here. But it's not that it's not a part of you, because again, here's the kicker. It's all connected, right? It is just not integrated fully. So don't ever feel like you're not whole already. You are already whole. What a shaman's work, what my work is to do, is to help you witness and acknowledge and reclaim that wholeness. And anybody selling, like, I will make you whole, like, run. Like, you are already whole. The reason that you hear that call for more is because you just want that piece to be acknowledged and reclaimed and witnessed on a conscious level. Does that make sense? Let me know if this resonates, and for real, leave questions. Oh my goodness, this is exciting.
So good. Everyone is loving this. This is all signs that
good. Oh, Christina.
So I know that we only have 5 minutes. I want you to also just share like your journey, because you haven't always been doing this work. I want people to
Out loud.
understand that, like, what you started in science and now, right?
Yeah.
Science. And then
Yeah. I was a scientist. So I was always, for context, I've always been spiritual. Like I said, I'm Métis. I had a lot of this spiritual work in me, in my blood, in my upbringing, but I was never kind of open about it. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff, like there's witch wound stuff, there's ancestral violence, all of these horrible things about that in particular, just with me, but also with everybody. I've always been in love with nature. So I became a zoologist. I got my master's in zoology, and I got a couple other degrees at the same time, just because I love learning. And I realized that my lane is finding the connections between all the lanes that interest me. So I didn't bother, like I never had a job that I wanted to do. I was fortunately really stubborn. I thought I would maybe be a professor. And I went through all of my masters, and I got a degree in philosophy as well. So I was kind of working in all of these lanes, and I thought I would be a prof. And I woke up one day, and I think looking back now, I think what happened was I recognized my currency is impact. Like, I'm a manifestor in human design. I don't know if that resonates with anybody here, but if I don't impact, I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm here to do. And I realized, I actually heard a statistic that was like, if you are in academia, your work will only be read like by 3 other people because it's so niche. And I was like, oh, hell no. So I woke up and I realized one day I'm meant to be a writer. I think I need to write now. And I knew that I wanted to write for children, because for me, if you ask anybody their favorite book that changed their life, it's always a kid's book. And that was something that I just knew in my heart was my next role. So I gave myself 1 year. I said, okay, if I can find an agent and write a book in a year, I'm going to take this as a good sign. And it ended up being like a year and like 3 days. So I was like, I'm taking it. That's fine. So I built that career over probably about 10, 15 years as a creative entrepreneur, teaching creativity, teaching kind of inspiration, and like gently spiritual stuff. Because again, when I talk about what I do now, nobody's surprised. They're like, oh, what a big pivot for you, Jess. Like, no, this has always been who I've been, but now I'm out and loud about it. So what happened, in the past few years, I actually had a bit of a near-death experience a few years ago that really just sort of pivoted everything again for me. And I realized it was not doing me any good hiding. And I was living this life where, I mean, I was on stage talking to thousands of people, traveling all the time, and by all metrics of success, doing really well. But I could feel that, again, that call for more. And when I learned what that was, I was like, oh, there's a million parts of me that I have not witnessed and integrated yet. And when I devoted clear time to doing that healing work, that was when everything shifted. That was when I was able to recognize, like, okay, in order to truly, in my way, my zone of genius, to talk about money and wealth in like a money awakening program type setting, I need to integrate the science of it, like the nervous system aspects, all of those things that matter in your human body, because you can't discount that. I need to integrate that with the spirituality. I need to integrate that with the shamanism. And like, one thing that rings true, whether you are an ecologist or a scientist or a creative coach, is the single law of like, it all depends, right? You cannot separate and say the answer is this one thing. And I was really sick of people telling me, oh, well, the solution to running your business is, your funnel, says the systems coach, or your energy, says the energetics coach, or your alignment, says the human design coach. They're not wrong, but my zone of genius is recognizing all of those things together. And then how on earth do you put that together in a practical, easy way that people can implement and feel this every day? That's my stuff. Like, that is how I realize now. I used to think, oh, there's something wrong with me because I'm kind of all over the map with what I'm doing. But then thankfully I had this amazing professor, as I was just kind of feeling that sense of like, there's no place for me. He said, no, Jess, you're not all over the map. You are the map. And some people are meant like that, just giving I know many people here probably need to hear that, because I know, like, I just saw there's some manifesting generators in here. multi-passionate people, we are often forced to put ourselves in a little box, right? And I want you to know it is no accident the paths you have been on already, the failures you've had, or the things that just sort of stay in the background of your life that matter to you. There is always a way to integrate that more into you, but also into your programs and your offers. And that is where money comes from. You don't like the view of a money ecosystem, which is what I will be teaching in Money Awakening, is that you don't have to put it all on you. You don't have to put, and I don't just mean like, oh, outsource your social media. I mean, energetically and spiritually. You can lean on your business. You can lean on your offer. You can lean on your shame. You can lean on your jealousy and your fear. And all of these things are energy. And like, wouldn't it be a shame to waste them? You know what I mean?
So powerful. You have mind blown this day.
Yay.
And I mean, just brought so much power into this space. Wow,
thank you so much.
This is so needed. If you maybe could stick around for 5 minutes or
yeah,
so
absolutely.
and look at some of the questions because we don't have time. I do have some time at 12:30 Pacific Daylight Time. So in about an hour and a half, where it's gonna be open Q&A. Just this is for everyone. If there's speakers around, you could join then, or I'll just be taking Q&A. But for now, because I have been requested a break, I'm going to play one song. Well, first off, leave any additional links, Jess.
Yeah. And if people want, they're also welcome to ask questions. I'm over on Instagram like every day at Jess Keating Books. Feel free to just send me, like, even if I don't have a question box open, feel free to send me questions there and I can set you up. And do hop on my Epic email list because again, I get a lot of reader questions and I love answering them. It means less work for me. Like I don't have to think of anything to talk about. I'm happy to answer questions anytime about any of these things we've talked about. But thank you so much. This has been amazing. Like Gabby said, we should just do this all the time.
Can you come back for the next show when we talk about more shamanism?
Oh my God. Yeah, I will be there. I will absolutely be there. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Jess.
Awesome. Take care.